Watches and Wonders, the biggest event in the watch world, is right around the corner, and I've got a lot of predictions for what we might see. There are a ton of anniversaries and plenty of rumors this year. I've made some mock-ups for a few of my main ideas so you can get a sense of what these watches could look like. We've got a lot to cover, so let's jump right in with one of the most anticipated brands this year, Tudor. Tudor has been one of the highlights of recent Watches and Wonders, especially with releases like the Black Bay 58 GMT in 2024 and Black Bay Pro Opaline in 2025. And with 2026 marking their 100th anniversary, expectations are high for Tudor to make some big moves. As I mentioned in my last video, I believe the brands are going to play it a bit safe this year, but milestones like this are an exception to that. We should see a good mix of safe releases with some large announcements from Tudor. The safest and most likely announcements are new dial colors for the Black Bay 58 and Pelagos, following the trend of last year's 58 Burgundy and Black Bay 68. Think sunburst and new colors in opaline dials, particularly for the 58 GMT, which I've been eyeing for a white version ever since its release, as a more refined take on the opaline Black Bay GMT. Another possibility is the return of the big block chronograph. We already saw one of these in solid gold back in 2023, so an updated stainless steel version with snowflake hands could be an awesome addition to Tudor's lineup, which is sorely lacking in a 12-hour totalizer chronograph. A reissue of the Tudor Submariner or Mini Sub would be a nice surprise, although it's quite unlikely. The Black Bay 41 monochrome was a huge success at 2024's Watches and Wonders, and a 36 or 39mm version would be extremely popular as another Submariner alternative if it was ever announced. And speaking of Rolex, let's talk about my predictions for them next. Following last year's release of their first new model in over a decade, all eyes are on Rolex again this year. The current rumor circulating around is that the Pepsi GMT Master 2 is soon to be discontinued. If that ends up being true, Rolex will need a replacement. I think it's very possible that we see the return of the red and black Coke GMT. If there was ever a fan favorite colorway to compete with the Pepsi GMT, it'd have to be the Coke. Classically, the bezels on these were either aluminum or bakelite, but I'm inclined to believe that these new ones would be in ceramic as the rest of the lineup is. The safest prediction for Rolex, though, would simply be new dial options for the Land Dweller. Its release last year only saw two dial colors in light sunburst blue and white, both with honeycomb patterns. An expansion on that lineup with colors like black, blue, green, silver, or even gold feels nearly guaranteed. And finally, the Milgauss's 70th anniversary is this year, so there has been a ton of speculation on whether it'd finally return after its discontinuation in 2023. With the Land Dweller's announcement being so recent and the economic troubles recently, I find it to be quite unlikely to see another model collection added so soon. But if it does come back, I'd expect it to use a variation of the high beat caliber 7135 and to come in some potentially new colors. The highlight of last year's Watches and Wonders for me was definitely Grand Seiko and their new UFA caliber, especially in the SLGB 003 with its Ice Forest dial, great sizing, and micro adjustment clasp. Since then, we haven't seen much in the way of this collection besides a limited edition purple version without the new clasp. I think it's a safe bet we'll get a new dial variation this year. Personally, I'd love to see a Lake Sua type dial, or other rich colors such as dark blue. Apparently, there were issues with scaling production of the micro adjustment clasp on these, so hopefully that's been resolved and we start to see more of this amazing collection. On a less likely note, I'm also hoping for a smaller spring drive chronograph. The tentographs in last year's Tokyo Lion are complete non-starters for me in the sizing department, with thicknesses of nearly 16mm and huge diameters. More wearable spring drives is always a win, especially if we finally get a nicely sized chronograph. I don't have too many predictions when it comes to Credor, but we should expect to see something in the hot horology category. Last year we saw the Kodo, and this year I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of Credor tourbillon or chiming complication to show off the brand's watchmaking skills. 2026 is also notable for Watches and Wonders because of AP's return to the convention. Of course, we'll see more Royal Oaks in some new colorways, sizes, and undoubtedly ridiculous gem sets and gaudy finishing. That's a given. What's more interesting is whether they'll announce something new. Based on recent releases, it's possible we may see a model line that's a modern reinterpretation of a vintage collection, like a more refined perpetual calendar, or maybe something more modern and impressive with unique complications like the Star Wheel. It feels like they may be trying to re-emphasize their watchmaking credentials. Regardless of what we see, I would be surprised if AP didn't have something new to show. Why else would they go through the effort of coming back to Watches and Wonders? Of course, there are a ton of other brands that are attending this year, too many to go over in one video. Quickly, I want to go over some of the noteworthy ones and a few ideas of what we might see from them. 2026 is the 50th anniversary for the Nautilus, so definitely expect to see some new versions of that line from Patek, particularly special editions with unique dials, perhaps a stone dial like I mentioned in the last video. It's also the 50th anniversary of IWC's Ingenieur, and it's a safe bet we're going to see some new colorways and variations of this release. A new micro adjustment clasp, complications, and even a 38 or 37mm size would be nice to see too. Tag Heuer is celebrating 40 years since the release of their Formula 1 line this year too, and with their recent rejoining as the official timekeeper of Formula 1 last year, I think we'll get a few new versions of those. Tag has also been releasing a ton of Carrera chronographs recently, so keep an eye out for more colors and variations of the glass box too. 2026 is Zinn's first year at Watches and Wonders, so I expect something new from them at the very least. Perhaps a watch or complication out of the ordinary for the brand, but also a refresh of their more popular models such as the 556, while they've got everyone's attention at the largest convention of the year. As I mentioned in my previous video, Zenith is in a bit of a rough spot at the moment, with their looming possible sale and overall mismanagement of the brand. Last year, their announcements were largely a disappointment, and I unfortunately expect more of the same this year. Hopefully that's not the case though, and we see something new and fresh from them, potentially some micro adjustment bracelets or new Chronomasters and El Primeros. I've said this before, but I think 2026 is going to be a big year for Microbrands. While larger companies play it safe, independents will continue to innovate and do what they do best. Some of the best watches we're going to see are going to be from Microbrands, but because of that, they're also the hardest to predict. Here's a few that are worth paying attention to and why. If astronomy and astronomical complications interest you, keep an eye on Christian Vanderklaw. All of their watches are space and astronomy themed, usually with unique complications that no other brand does. They're probably most famous for their planetarium designs, so I expect we'll see some more incredibly detailed and complex watches that display planet locations of some kind. Barons has the widest array of watch types than perhaps any microbrand I've ever seen. Their models are highly conceptual and varied, from being extremely light, strange time displays, incredible complications, and more. Expect to see something unique and unlike most other brands at the convention. Ressence is an amazingly unique microbrand that makes high-end luxury watches unlike any other brand in the industry. They focus on unconventional time telling via incredibly specialized movements that rotate the entire dial. Their watches have a hypermodern smartwatch look, but are entirely mechanical. Similar design language models are what I expect from them, but in different colors and case shapes. Similar to Ressence, Trelobe is a French brand also specializing in unconventional time telling. They produce mid to high-end luxury pieces, primarily with no hands and 3 separate lobes for hours, minutes, and seconds. We should see expansions of their current lines and more watches that follow this 3-ring scheme. Parmigiani isn't exactly a niche brand to most collectors in the know, but as an independent, they certainly are a brand to be paying attention to. They specialize in the high-end luxury space in a distinct modern and minimalistic design, incredible finishing, and unique complications such as their Minute Retropont. Expect further refinement of the Tonda line with a bit of other announcements sprinkled in. Going back to Tudor for a moment, and the idea of a big block chronograph return, I wanted to go back to the beginning of this line for today's obscure reference. Originally released in 1970, Tudor's first chronographs were the Oyster dates, referenced 7031 through 7033. Sporting a quirky orange and gray 70s design, these certainly stand out, even against Tudor's modern lineup. Besides their obscure nature and popularity and awareness, the 7030 chronograph series featured a few design elements unlike most other chronographs you see today. First, the 6 o'clock date is already relatively uncommon, but combined with the Cyclops, it gives the watch a very particular look. The outer indices are lovingly named home plate markers by fans, and the coloring and dial theme is quite unique. Due to the manual wind Valjoux 7734 inside, the minutes totalizer at 3 o'clock actually goes up to 45 minutes, which is quite rare in comparison to the usual 30 or even 60 minutes. Overall, the case design is classic Tudor, and it's remained relatively unchanged even today. The longer drilled lugs were extremely common on vintage Rolex cases, which this model had at the time. If Tudor does decide to bring back the big block either this year or sometime soon, I hope that they take inspiration from vintage models such as these. It's so easy for brands to take the safe approach with their designs these days. Introducing these orange accented elements and uniquely shaped dial designs would add so much personality to Tudor's rather reserved and boring modern lineup. Even though I think major brands are going to keep it relatively safe this year, Watches and Wonders 2026 could still have some huge announcements and influence over the industry. Sometimes new colorways and variations are exactly what people didn't know they wanted. Regardless, I'm excited to see what's revealed and to read all the discussions surrounding the event and where brands are headed this year. I'm really curious to hear if any of you had some predictions for this year's convention and what your thoughts were on mine. I'll see you guys for my next video this weekend. Thank you for taking the time to watch.